border. It's focusing on crime.
The themes of his campaign.
Yeah.
Which that totally makes sense to me. But I do want to push back on what David was saying about essentially saying that this is a problem that came from the Democratic side. And I would hope that we could take a little time off before we get to this. But the rhetoric out of the Republican side, out of Donald Trump himself or Don Jr. about the attack on Paul Pelosi, mocking him, making up a rumor that this was some gay sex event, right? And wasn't a terrible attack by someone who was politically motivated and could have taken his life. No. That is the genesis of this. This goes back to 2016.
Well, you can chicken and egg.
That was liberal Fox host Jessica Tarlove triggering her co-hosts with the truth, of course, that she always delivers and they always get so upset about. Yes, there's been a lot of talk in the past couple days in the wake of the assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump, which was obviously disgraceful and should be condemned. But there's been a lot of talk since then about what has caused this increase in political violence that we see, this kind of distorting of the political climate in this direction of fear and anger and attacks and dehumanization. And Republicans, instead of just condemning the attack and trying to join Democrats in bringing unity to this country, have been accusatory, conspiratorial. They've been angry, they've been vengeful, and they've been making these gross and upsetting and fear-inducing, for their supporters at least, statements about Democrats. And Jessica Tarlove perfectly calls out those statements. And she perfectly calls out what Donald Trump has said in the past, since 2015, since 2016, when he first started running for president, and the political climate that he has created with his rhetoric, saying that Trump for a long time has said to his supporters, memorably in 2016, that if you attack protesters at his rally, he'll pay your legal bills. He'll pay your fines off. He's happy to do it. You know, he also reposted on Truth Social that there needs to be a military tribunal for Liz Cheney, that she committed treason because she spoke out against Donald Trump. And also on Truth Social, he reposted a picture of President Biden being hogtied. That was on the back of a pickup truck. Just absolutely disgraceful. So Jessica perfectly called out and perfectly pointed out that this rhetoric has been coming from Donald Trump. And not only has it been coming from Donald Trump recently, it's been coming from Donald Trump since he started running for president in 2015. This is the foundation of the MAGA movement. It's fear, it's anger, it's victimhood, and it's caused this political violence that we see. And Jessica also talked about not only Donald Trump causing political violence, not only him inciting it, with the perfect example being the January 6th insurrection. Come on. How can you say Republicans haven't caused political violence on one of the darkest days in the history of this nation? But they've also normalized it in the way they've responded to political violence. Donald Trump not taking accountability for January 6th, saying he wants to pardon those insurrectionists, calling them political prisoners, normalizing, or at least trying to normalize, their behavior. And another example of that is that Donald Trump and Donald Trump Jr. both very broadly on social media have laughed at the attack that happened on Nancy Pelosi's husband, Paul Pelosi. They made fun of it. They've laughed at it. Trump's joked about it in his speeches. So an attack spurred on by Donald Trump, by one of his supporters, perpetuating this political violence, Donald Trump incited it, and now he's laughing at it and normalizing it. And Jessica Tarlove perfectly calls that out in this clip.
But nobody who's being an honest broker can possibly believe that the Democratic rhetoric is the problem here. So if the issue is that we're saying all the time that he's like Hitler and he's a threat to democracy, and by the way, J.D. Vance has also said that he's like Hitler, and I guess he's redeemed now. But Donald Trump sent a fundraising email just last week that said Joe Biden is a threat to democracy. And only one of these candidates has inspired people who sent pipe bombs to leading Democrats across the country, who has inspired mass shooters. Talk about firing up the base. Donald Trump has been doing that since 2016. Remember when he said the Second Amendment people could take care of it? Right, when he was talking about Hillary Clinton abolishing the Second Amendment and she'll get to appoint judges. He talked about, remember that congressman from Montana who body slammed a reporter and he said, he's my type. He retruthed or whatever it was, a video of Joe Biden hogtied just back in my...
That was hilarious.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Your examples
hilarious.
are so tiny.
No, they're
We're
not.
talking about an attempted assassination that left a man dead. The shooter groomed and incentivized
no
by
idea.
a drumbeat of demonization.
You have no idea what
can
that
call people.
registered Republican
You can call
was
people.
Yes, and you see there Jessica name-checking Donald Trump, name-checking Don Jr., calling them out for normalizing this political violence. And it's very clear that MAGA and the MAGA mindset that I've talked about so much needs to be deprogrammed out of the cult. And someone who said that and put it so perfectly that we just have to watch is Hillary Clinton. Let's check it out.
Very strong partisans in both parties in the past, and we had very bitter battles over all kinds of things, gun control and climate change and the economy and taxes. But there wasn't this little tail of extremism wagging the dog of the Republican Party as it is today. Mm-hmm. And sadly, so many of those extremists, those MAGA extremists, take their marching orders from Donald Trump, who has no credibility left by any measure. He's only in it for himself. He's now defending himself in civil actions and criminal actions. And when do they break with him? Because at some point, maybe there needs to be a formal deprogramming of the cult members, but something needs to happen.
Hillary Clinton, obviously with lots of experience in the MAGA mindset, this MAGA movement, this cult, she called it deplorable early on, and she was absolutely spot on. Maybe that was too nice of a description, but when she called the MAGA movement deplorable, which it is and it was, Republicans freaked out. Oh, what an attack on people's character. Now, they didn't care about the January 6th attack, but Hillary Clinton making a correct assessment of MAGA was so terrible. And as you would expect, when Hillary Clinton said that MAGA needed to be deprogrammed last year, they freaked out, just couldn't handle it, took it as such an offense. And Jessica Tarlove, again, it's just a Jessica Tarlove segment. We are so excited about her, glad that she's back, and just want to play more clips, more flashbacks of her. But she had a perfect response to Hillary Clinton saying that MAGA needs to be deprogrammed, and the response from the right, the faux outrage from the right about it.
But I really need everyone to spare me the faux outrage and the pearl clutching about this. Little collection of things that Donald Trump and high-ranking Republicans call liberals on a daily basis: anarchists, anti-American, deranged, communists, corrupt, compromised, groomers and perverts, thugs and traitors. Now, she was explicit that she was talking about a subsection of the Republican Party the same way that Joe Biden is when he talks about this MAGA extremism. But you tell me, if the leader of the Democratic Party, so that would be Joe Biden, was facing 4 indictments with 91 felony counts, he had been found liable of sexually assaulting a woman and defaming her, that's E. Jean Carroll, guilty of fraud, sharing the nation's secrets, not only in the Mar-a-Lago indictment, but there was a report yesterday from ABC News that he had shared information about our nuclear submarine capacities with an Australian billionaire who's a member at Mar-a-Lago, who had then gone on and shared that with dozens of other people. Ended up making a purchase, I think, of 3 subs. It included specifics up to how many nuclear warheads they carry and how close they can get to Russian subs without being detected. And then I told you, so all of that is happening, and he's shooting up in the polls. And when you see those interviews of Trump supporters outside of the rallies, they're like, none of this is true. It's the big lie. He won the election, et cetera. And you wouldn't say to me, you guys are in a cult? It's actually tame, what Hillary Clinton was saying.
Once again, Jessica Tarlove, she's not having any of the nonsense. She is shutting down the talking points. She is creating a better argument, and she is just absolutely the best. And if you are as big of a fan of Jessica Tarlove as I am, make sure that you go and subscribe to my channel. You can click right here to do so, or you can go to the link in the description of this video, click on it, and you can subscribe to my channel. Come join the movement that we are building over there. I would really appreciate it. And also make sure that you like this video, and I will see you next time.